Hare Krishna, my dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the Haven Live Studios, which is located in Hythe, Kent, Southeast England, CT21 6DY, a stone's throw from the English Channel. And I'm here with Abhay Das Brahmachari, my trusty assistant and servant and all-around helper and associate, friend. We're here to read the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which is the summum bonum of all knowledge, the ripened fruit of the Vedas, Nigamakāpa Galitam Palam. It is Shruti. Nigama means Shruti, and Agama means Smriti. The Smriti is explaining the Shruti, but the Bhagavatam is explaining the Vedanta Sutra, which is the summary of the Shruti. So Jiva Goswami categorizes the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam as Shruti, an eternal scripture. And Srila Sanatana Goswami has glorified this wonderful literature in Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Mahima Stotram, and it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems, of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Purāṇa, Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho, Kali Dvandoditaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshak Shadayate, Sarvada Savasevyaya, Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin, Madguru Man Mahadana, Man Nistadaga Mad Bhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutadayin, atini chochata kada, hanamun chagadachin mam, premna rit kantayuk spuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we've reached the 25th chapter of the third canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And Kapila Dev is elaborating on the glories of devotional service before he launches into the Sankhya philosophy, which leads to the pure devotional service. We're beginning with text 39 and 40. Thus, the devotee who worships me, the all-pervading Lord of the universe, in unflinching devotional service gives up all aspirations to be promoted to heavenly planets or to become happy in this world with wealth, children, cattle, home, or anything in relationship with the body. I take him to the other side of birth and death. That cattle is not a good word. Unflinching devotional service, as described in these two verses, means engaging oneself in full Krishna consciousness or devotional service, accepting the Supreme Lord as all in all. Since the Supreme Lord is all-inclusive, if anyone worships him with unflinching faith, he has automatically achieved all other opulences and performed all other duties. The Lord promises herein that he takes care. The Lord promises herein that he takes his devotee to the other side of birth and death. Lord Chaitanya had therefore recommended that one who aspires to go beyond birth and death should have no material possessions. This means that one should not try to be happy in this world or to be promoted to the heavenly world, nor should he try for material wealth, children, houses, or cattle. How liberation is imperceptibly achieved by a pure devotee and what the symptoms are have been explained. For the conditioned soul, there are two statuses of living. One status is in this present life, and the other is in our preparation for the next life. If I am in the mode of goodness, then I may be preparing for promotion to the higher planets. If I am in the mode of passion, then I shall remain here in a society where activity is very prominent. And if I am in the mode of ignorance, I may be degraded to animal life or a lower grade of human life. But for a devotee, there is no concern for this life or the next life, because in any life he does not desire elevation in material prosperity, or a high grade or low grade life. He prays to the Lord, "My dear Lord, it does not matter where I am born, but let me be born even as an ant in the house of a devotee." A pure devotee does not pray to the Lord for liberation from this material bondage. Actually, the pure devotee never thinks that he is fit for liberation. Considering his past life and his mischievous activities, he thinks that he is fit to be sent to the lowest region of hell. If in this life I am trying to become a devotee, this does not mean that in my many past lives I was 100% pious. That is not possible. A devotee, therefore, is always conscious of his real position. Only by his full surrender to the Lord, by the Lord's grace, are his sufferings made shorter. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, "Surrender unto me, and I will give you protection from all..." Surrender unto me, and I will give you protection from all kinds of sinful reactions. That is his mercy. But this does not mean that one who has surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord has committed no misdeeds in his past life. A devotee always prays, "For my misdeeds, may I be born again and again, but my only prayer is that I may not forget your service." The devotee has that much mental strength, and he prays to the Lord, "May I be born again and again, but let me be born in the home of your pure devotee, so that I may again get a chance to develop myself." A pure devotee is not anxious to elevate himself in his next birth. He has already given up that sort of hope. In any life in which one is born as a householder or even as an animal, one must have some children, some resources, or some possessions. But a devotee is not anxious to possess anything. He is satisfied with whatever is obtainable by God's grace. He is not at all attached to improving his social status or improving the status of his education, of his children. He is not neglectful. He is dutiful, but he does not spend too much time on the upliftment of temporary household or social life. He fully engages in the service of the Lord, and for other affairs, he simply spares as much time as absolutely necessary. Yatarham upayunjataham. Such a pure devotee does not care for what is going to happen in the next life or in this life. He does not care even for family, children, or society. He fully engages in the service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that without the knowledge of the devotee, the Lord arranges for his devotee to be immediately transferred to his transcendental abode just after leaving his body. After quitting his body, he does not go into the womb of another mother. The ordinary, common living entity after death is transferred to the womb of another mother, according to his karma or activities, to take another type of body. But as far as the devotee is concerned, he is at once transferred to the spiritual world in the association of the Lord. That is the Lord's special mercy. How is it possible? How it is possible is explained in the following verses. Because he is all-powerful, the Lord can do anything and everything. He can excuse all sinful reactions. He can immediately transfer a person to Vaikuntha. That is the inconceivable power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is favorably disposed to the pure devotees. Text 41. The terrible fear of birth and death can never be forsaken by anyone who resorts to any shelter other than myself. For I am the Almighty Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original source of all creation, and also the Supreme Soul of all souls. Purport. It is indicated herein that the cycle of birth and death cannot be stopped unless one is a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. It is said, Harim bina namritim taranti. Harim bina namritim taranti. If one cannot surpass the cycle of birth and death unless one is favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The same concept is confirmed herewith. One may take to the system of understanding the absolute truth by one's own imperfect sensory speculation, or one may try to realize the self by the mystic yoga process. But whatever one may do, unless he comes to the point of surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no process can give him liberation. One may ask if this means that those who are undergoing so much penance and austerity by strictly following the rules and regulations are endeavoring in vain. The answer is given by Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 10.2.32. Ye ravindaksha vimukti manina. Lord Brahma and other demigods prayed to the Lord when Krishna was in the womb of Devaki. My dear lotus-eyed Lord, there are persons who are puffed up with the thought that they have become liberated or one with God or have become God. but in spite of thinking in such a puffed up way, their intelligence is not laudable. They are less intelligent. It is stated that their intelligence, whether high or low, is not even purified. In purified intelligence, a living entity cannot think otherwise than to surrender. Bhagavad Gita therefore confirms that purified intelligence arises in the person of a very wise man. Bahunam janmanamante gyanavam mam prapadyate. After many, many births, one who was actually advanced in intelligence surrenders unto the Supreme Lord. Without the surrendering process, one cannot achieve liberation. The Bhāgavatam says, those who are simply puffed up, thinking themselves liberated by some non-devotional process, are not polished or clear in intelligence, for they have not yet surrendered unto you. In spite of executing all kinds of austerities and penances, or even arriving at the brink of spiritual realization in Brahman realization, they think that they are in the effulgence of Brahman, but actually, because they have no transcendental activities, they fall down to material activities. End quote. One should not be satisfied simply with knowing that one is Brahman. He must engage himself in the service of the Supreme Brahman. That is bhakti. The engagement of Brahman should be the service of Parabrahman. It is said that unless one becomes Brahman, one cannot serve Brahman. The Supreme Brahman is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the living entity is also Brahman. Without realization that he is Brahman, spirit soul, an eternal servitor of the Lord, if one thinks that he is Brahman, his realization is only theoretical. He has to realize and at the same time engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. Then he can exist in the Brahman status. Otherwise, he falls down. The Bhagavatam says that because non-devotees neglect the transcendental loving service of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, their intelligence is not sufficient, and therefore these persons fall down. The living entity must have some activity. If he does not engage in the activity of transcendental service, he must fall down to material activity. As soon as one falls down to material activity, there is no rescue from the cycle of birth and death. It is stated here by Lord Kapila, without my mercy, nanyatra mad Bhāgavata. The Lord is stated here to be Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, indicating that he is full of all opulences and is therefore perfectly competent to deliver one from the cycle of birth and death. He is also called Pradhan because he is supreme. He is equal to everyone, but to one who surrenders to him, he is especially favorable. It is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that the Lord is equal to everyone. No one is his enemy and no one is his friend. But to one who surrenders unto him, he is especially inclined. By the grace of the Lord, simply by surrendering unto him, one can get out of this cycle of birth and death. Otherwise, one may go on in many, many lives and many, many times attempt other processes for liberation. Text 42. It is because of my supremacy that the wind blows out of fear of me. The sun shines out of fear of me. And the Lord of the clouds, Indra, sends forth showers out of fear of me. Fire burns out of fear of me, and death goes about taking its toll out of fear of me. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, says in Bhagavad Gita that the natural laws being enacted are correct in all activities because of his superintendence. No one should think that nature is working automatically without superintendence. The Vedic literature says that the clouds are controlled by the demigod Indra. Heat is distributed by the sun god. The soothing moonlight is distributed by Chandra, and the air is blowing under the arrangement of the demigod Vayu. But above all these demigods, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the chief living entity. Nityo, Nityanam, Chaitanas, Chaitananam. Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. The demigods are also ordinary living entities, but due to their faithfulness, their devotional service attitude, they have been promoted to such posts. These different demigods, or directors, such as Chandra, Varuna, and Vayu, are called Adhikari Devata. The demigods are departmental heads. The government of the Supreme Lord consists not only of one planet, or two, or three. There are millions of planets and millions of universes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has a huge government, and he requires assistance. The demigods are considered his bodily limbs. These are the descriptions of the Vedic literature. Under these circumstances, the sun god, the moon god, the fire god, and the air god are working under the direction of the Supreme Lord. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Maya yakshena prakriti suyate sachadachadam. The natural laws are being conducted under his superintendence. Because he is in the background, everything is being performed punctually and regularly. One who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely protected from all other influences. He no longer serves or is obliged to anyone else. Of course, he is not disobedient to anyone, but his full power of thought is absorbed in the service of the Lord. The statements by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapila, that under his direction the air is blowing, the fire is burning, and the sun is giving heat, are not sentimental. The impersonalist may say that the Bhāgavatam devotees create and imagine someone as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and assign qualifications to him. But actually, it is neither imagination nor an imposition of artificial power in the name of Godhead. In the Vedas it is said, Bishasmat Vatak Pavate, Bisho Deti Surya. By fear of the Supreme Lord, the wind god and the sun god are acting. Bishamad Agnis Chandrascha Mrityur Dhavati Panchamaha. Agni, Indra, and Mrityu are all acting under his direction. These are the statements of the Vedas. Text 43. The yogis, equipped with transcendental knowledge and renunciation, are engaged in devotional service for their eternal benefit, taking shelter of my lotus feet. And since I am the Lord, they are thus eligible to enter into the kingdom of Godhead without fear. Purport. One who actually wants to be liberated from the entanglement of this material world and go back home, back to Godhead, is actually a mystic yogi. The words explicitly used here are yuktena bhakti yogena. Those yogis or mystics who engage in devotional service are the first-class yogis. The first-class yogis are described in Bhagavad Gita. The first-class yogis, as described in Bhagavad Gita, are those who are constantly thinking of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. These yogis are not without knowledge and renunciation. To become a bhakti yogi means to automatically attain knowledge and renunciation. That is the consequent result of bhakti yoga. In the Bhāgavatam, 1st Canto, 2nd chapter, it is also confirmed that one who engages in the devotional service of Vasudeva, Krishna, has complete transcendental knowledge and renunciation, and there is no explanation for these attainments. Ahaituki, without reason, they come. Even if a person is completely illiterate, the transcendental knowledge of the scriptures is revealed unto him simply because of his engagement in devotional service. That is also stated in the Vedic literature. To anyone who has full faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the spiritual master, all the import of the Vedic literatures are revealed. He does not have to seek separately. The yogis who engage in devotional service are full in knowledge and renunciation. If there is a lack of knowledge and renunciation, it is to be understood that one is not in full devotional service. The conclusion is that one cannot be sure of entrance into the spiritual realm in either the impersonal Brahmajyoti effulgence of the Lord or the Vaikuntha planets within that Brahman effulgence, unless he is surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. The surrendered souls are called Akutobhaya. They are doubtless and fearless, and their entrance into the spiritual kingdom is guaranteed. Text 44. Therefore, persons whose minds are fixed on the Lord engage in the intensive practice of devotional service. That is the only means for attainment of the final perfection of life. Purport. Here the words mano mai arpitam, which mean the mind being fixed on me, are significant. One should fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna or his incarnation. To be fixed steadily in that freedom is the way of liberation. Ambarish Maharaj is an example. He fixed his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. He spoke only on the pastimes of the Lord. He smelled only the flowers in tulsi offered to the Lord. He walked only to the temple of the Lord. He engaged his hands in cleansing the temple. He engaged his tongue in tasting the foodstuff offered to the Lord. And he engaged his ears for hearing the great pastimes of the Lord. In that way, all his senses were engaged. First of all, the mind should be engaged at the lotus feet of the Lord, very steadily and naturally. Because the mind is the master of the senses. When the mind is engaged, all these senses become engaged. That is Bhakti Yoga. Yoga means controlling the senses. The senses cannot be controlled in the proper sense of the term. They are always agitated. This is true also with a child. How can he be forced to sit down silently? It is not possible. Even Arjuna said, Chanchalam himanak Krishna. The mind is always agitated. The best course is to fix the mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. Mano mai arpitam stiram. If one seriously engages in Krishna consciousness, that is the highest perfectional stage. All Krishna conscious activities are on the highest perfectional level of human life. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 25th chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled The Glories of Devotional Service. All glories to Shri Kapiladev, and all glories to all those who are hearing the glories of devotional service as expounded by Lord Kapiladev. Hare Krishna. So, we're over 7:50. I think I'll stop here. It's a good stopping place. And tomorrow we'll start with the fundamental principles of material nature. Very, very interesting chapter. Okay. We're ready for the reflections. These are wonderful purports and verses that we just read. We anticipate some wonderful reflections from the devotees. Hare Krishna.
Okay, first is from Sudevi Dasi.
Yes, Sudevi Dasi.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna to you.
And from Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Yes, Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, and all assembled sages, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam.
All glories to the Bhagavat Purāṇa, the Amala Purāṇa.
It's from Rati Manjari.
Yes, Rati.
Jai Guru Maharaj, bringing to us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Oh.
It is so good. It's exhilarating.
Yes. I couldn't agree with you more. Every time I read this book, it is exhilarating. That's a good word. Hare Krishna.
And from Daitari Hari.
Yes, Daitya Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thanks for tonight's reading. I was wondering how we can understand the following statement we heard tonight in proper context. Quote, may I be born again and again, but let me be born in the home of your pure devotees, so that I may again get a chance to develop myself.
We put that into the context of utter humility. The person who is extremely elevated in devotional service and eligible, therefore, to return to Krishna's lotus feet and play with him personally, thinks himself very low. As a matter of fact, he thinks himself the lowest. Everyone else, he thinks, is a devotee except for him. So in that state, he says, may I be born in the family of a devotee. And of course, the Lord takes him back to him, where he also has a family, but it just happens to be eternal and fully blissful. Hare Krishna.
From Anandamurti Devi Dasi.
Yes, Anandamurti Devi Dasi. One more point about this Mami Janmani Janmanishware Bhavatad Bhaktir. Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahaitu Kitoi. This is the statement of Lord Chaitanya in his Shikshastaka, which is very succinct, a very succinct description of the process of elevation in devotional service. In this verse, which is the fourth verse, he says he doesn't want wealth, he doesn't want followers, he doesn't want beautiful women. He only wants devotional service, life ever life, which means he's not actually interested in liberation. So this is another aspect of that question that Dait Haridas asked. Birth after birth means not interested in liberation, but he's only interested in being with Krishna. Therefore he prays, let me be born in a family of devotees so I can always think about you and never forget you. Hare Krishna.
And this is from Anandamurti.
Yes, Anandamurti.
Dear Guru Maharaj and all the assembled devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for today's reading of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. I am back here after a few days' holiday of family travel, and now I found how this reading is so powerful, and I feel I can't live without this reading. I felt the power of the Bhakti Yoga. Quote, Ahaituki, without reason they come. Even if a person is completely illiterate, the transcendental knowledge of the scriptures is revealed unto him simply because of his engagement in devotional service.
Yes.
Unquote. Thank you so much.
Yes, well, thank you for pulling out that quote, that gem. Srila Prabhupada's books are full of gems that are so satisfying to contemplate and look at and hear. Thank you very much. The power of devotional service. If you just perform devotional service for Krishna's pleasure, you may be doing the most menial service, but the knowledge comes to you. By the circumstances that Krishna puts you in, the knowledge comes to you. Hare Krishna. I like the further statement, because Krishna can do anything and everything. That faith means we actually understand who Krishna is. He can do anything and everything. He can even deliver the likes of me. And that gives a devotee full satisfaction. Hare Krishna.
From Subbarao Rajagopal.
Yes, Subbarao.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for reading service. Glorious chapter on the glories of devotional service. Many precious gems of all conclusive truths. Jai ho to you, Maharaj, for bringing these out by reading to us.
Hare Krishna. You're all making me feel very embarrassed, but fulfilled. Hare Krishna. I'm also very attached to reading the Bhagavatam to you. Very attached. Today I talked to my best friend, Vaisheshika Prabhu, and he asked me if I was coming to Govardhan. And of course I'm not really in physically good enough shape to travel all that way. But even if I were, it would be very hard for me to give up this reading to you. Hare Krishna.
Shamrati Manjari.
Yes, Rati.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances at your lotus feet. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Tonight I really liked the transparent description in the purport of texts 39 and 40. Quote, it is stated in Bhagavad Gita that without the knowledge of the devotee of the It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that without the knowledge of the devotee, the Lord arranges for him to be immediately transferred to the Lord's transcendental abode, just after he leaves his body. After quitting his body, he does not go into the womb of another mother. The ordinary common living entity after death is transferred to the womb of another mother according to his karma or activities to take another type of body. But as far as the devotee is concerned, he is at once transferred to the spiritual world in the association of the Lord. That is the Lord's special mercy.
So Sanatana Goswami adds another dimension to this wonderful idea that you're bringing up. And that is that even though the devotee no longer is liberated already and therefore doesn't yearn for a spiritual liberation, still he gives special emphasis and respect to the spiritual world, especially Goloka Vrindavan, because if he goes there, then he not only is a pure devotee, but he gets to associate with nothing but absolutely pure devotees. That's the most attractive feature of the spiritual world. He gets to be with Krishna, but not just Krishna alone, but Krishna with all of his loving devotees. And he gets to associate with them and have his daily activities with them and all his loving exchanges with them and with Lord Krishna. And that's so wonderful that not only is it completely satisfying, but the satisfaction increases constantly, moment to moment, forever. We can't even conceive of what that would be like, or what that would mean. We're so attached to this body and these horrible miseries of this material world that we've actually begun to think that, a little improvement in the misery means, happiness, or a temporary cessation, a short cessation of the misery is actual happiness, when it's not, because real happiness doesn't end, ever.
And from Koladvipati.
Yes, Koladvipati.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Please could you help me understand what it means by, quote, first of all, the mind should be engaged at the lotus feet of the Lord very steadily and naturally, unquote. Thank you.
It means that when you're purified, when your mind is controlled and you're purified, then you want to think of the Lord. Your mind naturally thinks of the Lord. It's not something that you have to artificially attempt to do. It's not like an austerity that you do this austerity in order to get a better position in the future. You study in order to get a good job, or you study an instrument to become a famous person, or what's called a virtuoso in that instrument, even to have the satisfaction of it. But you naturally know what to do, what not to do. You naturally think of Krishna all the time. Even if you may not be thinking directly of the form, you're thinking of what you can do to please Krishna. Even the most menial service, if you do it in full Krishna consciousness, it gives you full satisfaction. So it means naturally the mind is thinking of Krishna. And from there, everything opens, the door opens to experiencing the tastes of loving exchange with Krishna and his devotees. And that's the goal. When you no longer are dependent on the rules and regulations, but your mind automatically thinks all the time about Krishna in some way or another. Hare Krishna.
More from Rati Manjoy.
Yes, Rati.
I have a question about the earlier part of the purport. I quote, "He is not at all attached to improving his social status or improving the status of education of his children. He is not neglectful, he is dutiful, but he does not spend too much time on the upliftment of temporary household or social life. He fully engages in the service of the Lord, and for other affairs he simply spares as much time as absolutely necessary. Yatarham upayunjataha. Such a pure devotee does not care for what is going to happen in the next life or in this life. He does not care even for family, children, or society. He fully engages in the service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. My question is, isn't it important to be engaged in preaching and caring for the welfare of others, even one's family members? Isn't that included in one's service of the Lord? Perhaps I am comparing two incomparable things.
Yeah, you are. He's talking about when we're in pure devotional service, then whatever position we're in, whether within a family or we're not with a family, with a renunciant in the forest, or a traveling preacher, or whatever situation we're in, we naturally think of Krishna. And we're satisfied with what comes of its own accord. Yadricha labasantishto. We don't scheme and plan to make things better and better and better for our family or our community, but we do our duties in such a way that Krishna is so pleased with us that those things happen automatically. Just like there's that famous Manasi Deho, Mo Krichamor, that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, maybe I'm mixing another song, but anyway, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when I'm doing devotional service, my house turns into Vrindavan, and my relatives turn into, eternal servants of the Lord, and so I associate with them, just like I associate with them in the spiritual world. And such a person, satisfies everyone, unless he's got a mission. And then Krishna arranges it so the family life becomes unbearably, an impediment. And then he leaves. That's exactly what Prabhupada did. He left because he wasn't so restricted by love of just a few people. The whole human society becomes his family. Therefore he goes anywhere and everywhere, awakening Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada used to joke, when I was a householder, I had 3 or 4 or 5 children. I can't remember exactly how many, maybe 5. But now I've given up the family life, and now I have thousands of children. And he was taking care of all of us, just like a loving father. Because he's doing it for Krishna, to serve Lord Chaitanya, to spread the Krishna consciousness to everyone without exception. And therefore Krishna arranges for that person to meet people who will get some benefit from the devotee. As a matter of fact, everybody the devotee meets gets some kind of benefit. You've been telling us these stories for a long time, Rati. You should know this. You run into somebody all of a sudden out of the street, and there happens to be a little, a card or something, and it all just happens naturally. Because you have compassion for others. But if one is just limited to the family and protecting the family without caring for the wider population, and even the extended taking care of the bodies, in family and community and nation and the world or whatever, without Krishna, it's tasteless. If we can't give Krishna then what we're doing eventually becomes tasteless, because the nature of material energy, it always changes. But Krishna consciousness is eternal. So whenever you're in Krishna consciousness, you taste the eternal. Therefore, no matter what situation you're in, even if you're in family life, Prabhupada was in family life, but he was always thinking of how to preach, how to follow the order of a spiritual master and spread Krishna consciousness to the West. Therefore, Krishna arranged it. In other words, if we let Krishna arrange things, he does it more perfectly than we can ever arrange it. Our arrangements generally fall short. Therefore, we're always dissatisfied. But Krishna's arrangements are all perfect. So the pure devotee allows Krishna to make all arrangements and doesn't worry about the arrangements. Krishna arranges things. Ananya cheta satatam yomam satyajit nityam yogakshemam bahamyaham. For one who is ananya cheta, who is thinking of Krishna without impediment, without stopping, then Krishna makes up what we lack and preserves what we have. He does that personally. Every devotee has this experience before they joined. There was a series of events, a series of circumstances which just put them in the company of devotees. We all have that experience. We didn't plan it out. It just happened because of what our need was in our heart, what our desire was in our heart for something better. What to speak of when our heart's desire becomes to please Krishna, and only to please Krishna. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Dayal Nitai.
Yes, Dayal Nitai.
Dear Srila Guru Maharaj, please accept my obeisance. Hare Krishna. Thank you for tonight's reading. Would you please elaborate on the element of fear by which we heard tonight the Devas are executing their duties? Would we say that their service is considered devotional service? Thank you, your servant.
They're devotional service, but they're mixed. They're devotees, but they're mixed devotees. They're not pure devotees. And therefore they sometimes become entangled in the complexities of being in the material world. It's not that the demigods, are free from fear, or free from, material complexities. That's the nature of the material world, everywhere. Dukhalayam ashasvatam. In the Bhagavad Gita it says no one, top to bottom, in the material world is completely free from the influence of the modes of nature. Or let me put it another way. A pure devotee is free, but he still has to be here. He has to look and see how things are, what's happening around him. He still has to get old and get pains and disease. But it doesn't disturb him. It doesn't interfere with his happiness, because he isn't the body. And the happiness he gets from devotional service is beyond the body. Therefore we can stay in a happy mood even when we're in pain in this material world, or even when we're put in a situation where we have to be in a difficult personal relationship, or a certain task that may be problematic. Especially nowadays, it's everywhere. Just walk out the door and it's, there's fires everywhere. In Europe, there's never been as much heat. Here in England, they went over 90 degrees Fahrenheit for the first time ever in the history of the country. So no matter how elevated you are or how whatever you are, you have to do that. You may be the richest man in the world, but you can still only take 3 or 4 chapatis. It's not that because you're the richest man in the world you can take 16,000 chapatis. It's not that the food tastes so much better because it's in a golden plate rather than a leaf plate. Hare Krishna. Yes, Rati.
This is in regards to your answer to her first quote. Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for churning my desire to go back home, back to Godhead, so I can be with all Krishna's pure devotees and engage in loving exchanges with them. My heart yearns for this more and more.
Yes, that is Krishna consciousness. And when it's mature, you'll go back to Godhead. And even if you think you're not mature, just by thinking like this, and desiring like this, and yearning for this, what to speak of what you actually are practically doing to lead Harinam parties and help to spread Krishna consciousness in Holland. Krishna will come and take you back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
From Subarao?
Yes, Subarao.
Among the many gems, one of the many key verses in this chapter is 3:25:20. Quote, every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the door of liberation. Unquote. Thank you for giving us the Sadhu Sangha association through the reading of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and through the glorious words of Bhaktivedanta purports. Thank you.
Yes, we heard the verse in this chapter. Satam prasangam mama virya sambido bhavanti vitkarana. It is the joy of the heart, it is the joy of the ears, the hearing of Krishna Katha, and it can only be done in the association of pure devotees. That's why we're all relishing it so much. Hare Krishna. Yes, Rati.
Guru Maharaj, by your and the Vaishnavas' inspiration, we have been going on many Harinams lately, 5 in the last week. They are becoming more and more ecstatic. People are spontaneously joining us, dancing with us, filming us, taking prasadam and buying books. It feels like everyone is so ripe for the freshness of Krishna consciousness.
Yes, exactly. And we're over here beating on the Mridanga, on the Brihat Mridanga, reading these books out loud, and it's the same. Believe it or not, it's the same. I'm just thrilled by the reflections. I expected it to be like this because this chapter is so wonderful. So thank you very much for your reflections and for your discussions, for your questions and everything, for your encouraging words to me. Hare Krishna. It's a proof of the pudding.
One more from Dayalnitai.
Yes, Dayalnitai.
He says, thank you, Sridhar Guru Maharaj, for your clarification.
You're completely welcome. This is the process. Hearing and chanting. Asking the right questions and getting the right answers. And these books are full of the right questions and the right answers. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. So see you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same topic, as Lord Kapila Dev is going to open our eyes as to what the material nature actually is. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow.